I never knew how much I needed a battle of edgelords until I saw this panel in this chapter of My Hero Academia. So, we have an early chapter of My Hero Academia this week. FYI, it's Thursday, and the chapter came out early, along with One Piece and the other weekly shonen manga, and so this is quite the treat. And now, just as a brief FYI, just to, talk about why it was released early, apparently there's something going on in Weekly Shonen Jump to where they're releasing, the magazine on Sunday or Saturday, which is causing us to get early releases of My Hero Academia, One Piece, and stuff like that. And from what I have heard, apparently we're going to be getting early chapters for the next, 2 or so weeks. So up until around, chapter 200, we're probably going to have, a release on Thursday instead of Friday morning. So just wanting to let you all know, that's what I heard. So that is the reason why we're getting an early release of My Hero Academia and One Piece for this week, unless they, have a break. And we know that Oda-sensei takes a lot of breaks, and Horikoshi sometimes takes breaks too, since, he gets overworked a lot. He does a lot of things, especially with the anime going on. But okay, getting on topic, this chapter, oh my god, that final part of the chapter, Tokoyami steps into the spotlight, which, as I know, he loves the darkness. He loves being in the shadows, dark shadow. He's a chuny. But I'm so happy. I'm legit, just as a fan, not even as a reviewer, okay, of My Hero Academia. I am so freaking happy that Tokoyami is getting time to shine. That makes me so happy, because if you've been around for a while, you know I love Tokoyami. He's one of my favorites of Class A. I've always loved him. I loved his chuny nature. He's like the goth kid in class. He's like the guy's like, I have the shadows on my side or whatever. I love Tokoyami. His design and, his stand-up power. I've always loved it. So seeing him get a major spotlight in this fight, round 2 between Class A and Class B, pleases me greatly, and it definitely goes along with what I said in my last chapter review, that if we're going with how the pacing was in the last fight with, Class A and Class B, the first round, we could assume that these matches might take about maybe 3 to 4 chapters, which in case, yes, it'll be a while until we finally get to see Shinzo up against Izuku, or even answers to One for All, but at the very least it's giving us characterization and development for all the characters, not just Class A, but Class B. So just thank you so much, Horikoshi. I really am appreciating this. I really hope that is exactly what you're doing, because that's what it appears to be, especially with this setup with Tokoyami and, Shi Hai, but also the setup with Kendo and Momo as well. So there's a lot of setup going on in this round. Definitely a lot more setup, actually, than the previous round. So Horikoshi definitely has a lot of plans to expand upon these characters. So right off the bat, I want to talk about certain designs and stuff, which I talked about our manga dude in the past when I was covering both sides, Class A and B, and who was going to be going up against each other. But I want to point out that the manga dude, the guy that has the manga face, the manga panel face, his name is legit Manga. Horikoshi, come on, man, look, I know you have a lot of characters, and I know you have some fancy names for some characters, but the character name, Manga, really, of all character names you could give a dude, you give him Manga. I mean, yes, he looks like a freaking manga, page, but still, just of all names? Really? But okay, jokes aside though, I want to talk about his design. Anyone notice that his design, he has literally ink bottles, as his costume? You'll actually see the ink bottles on his legs to where his head is. And I also like when, Tokoyami sent in Dark Shadow, emotions are shown through the man's head, like what you would see in, a manga or a comic, where you have a sound effect, like boom, or explosion, or whatever. You actually see that with the man's head. Every time something goes on, you see how his head kind of changes shape into some form of effect. So cool stuff by, Horikoshi. I like those little things, and I have a very, big suspicion that the dude Manga is legit gonna probably be one of the strongest members of that team, because let's be real here, that his existence alone is almost fourth wall breaking, because this is a manga. On top of that, Horikoshi is a mangaka. He makes manga, so the dude that literally has a manga face and could potentially manipulate manga or whatever probably has an OP ability that's going to be pretty freaking scary, so I am looking forward to finding out more about him. I've always, been interested in his design when he was first introduced a long time ago, and I'm glad to see that we probably are going to get some details about him. Let's talk about Kendo and Momo. Now, Momo as a character, she's went through a lot of development. Some development that really hasn't been kind of obvious. You really have to kind of analyze Momo as a character, realize how much she has changed since the very beginning of the series. As we remember a while back, even in Season 2, if you remember the recent events in Season 2, you remember Momo had a problem to where she was very insecure. She felt like she couldn't really decide on anything. She didn't know if what she was going to do was actually the right choice or not. She was very indecisive, and so she let Todoroki just decide everything. This happened in Season 2 when they were teaming up together to go up against Aizawa. And we saw how she, had this problem, and eventually throughout that little match against Aizawa, she actually learned to be a little bit more confident in her decisions, and she developed a lot from that. And she became a more strong-willed person to, understand when she needs to take action or not to take action, and she's made steps to progress as a person. And so she's had some development here and there, especially in the moment with, All for One, when she decided to go with Todoroki, Izuku, Ida, and all of them to go save Bakugo. It's definitely a critical moment for her character. She's been developing slowly on the side since the very beginning, but like I said, it hasn't really been that obvious because there's so many characters in the series that you have to keep track of that sometimes you might lose some information that's actually vital for the character. So Momo, she's went through a lot of development. If you're a Momo fan, most likely you know what development she's went through. And Kendo as a character, she has been somewhat relevant in the story, but she hasn't really been in the major spotlight. The only time she's really been in the spotlight was when, the entire group, all of Class A and Class B, got attacked at the training camp by the villains. You remember at the beginning of Season 3 of the anime, you got to where the villains came in, Dabi came in, everybody came in, and they were all in jeopardy with the gas and stuff just, surrounding them in the woods. And Kendo had to step up and take down Mustard and bring him down. Kendo has had some spotlight in the past. We've gotten to see her quirk, we've gotten to see how she's very quick-witted, she's able to come up with plans on the fly, and just really showcase that she does have the qualifications to be a hero. And if there's one thing we do have to note from her, is that she does have live experience with villains. See, here's the one thing that kind of separates Class A and Class B. Remember what was stated when this all began, with these rounds and stuff between Class A and Class B, is that Class A, they have a lot more experience with dealing with villains because of internships or just always being in a crisis situation ever since Season 1 or the beginning of the series in the manga. They've had to deal with so many things with villain attacks. While Class B, they've always been kind of the people shoved to the side, and they've kind of kept to their studies, trying to learn things, progressing themselves, but overall, they've never really had live practice exercise that would actually really happen in real world. So because of that, that's what really separates Class A and Class B. Even though Class A does have experience, Class B does have a lot of knowledge. However, Kendo is very different as an individual. She is someone that has experienced a villain attack, but on top of that, she's had a lot of time to really train and study with Class B. So she's definitely different from the normal student of Class B. She is definitely someone that Momo and everybody else a part of her team is going to have to look out for and be careful with, because she definitely has experience on how to, watch over her teammates, but also worry about potentially some of them even, getting KIA'd or something. And that's kind of what this, exercise is actually about, is that you got to treat each enemy team as a villain group. And so if you're attacked or whatever, you're captured, you might as well say you're effectively dead. You should just say you're done, it's over. So Kendo's gonna look at this as a situation like, I gotta keep everybody safe, I can't let anybody get captured, I gotta make sure nothing bad happens to them, and since she has experience with this, well, this is going to play into her favor. Now, I'm not saying Momo is at a disadvantage, because Momo, regardless of her experience and all that, she also has a very good quirk, which was stated even in this chapter. Kendo admits that Momo, as, a person, she has a better quirk, she just stands out a lot more than Kendo, which is honestly the truth. But at the same time, we gotta remember, when it comes to My Hero Academia, it's not always about the quirk that decides the winner in these cases. Yes, quirk is a big factor, and All Might, having one for all was definitely a deciding factor in why he remained on top as the #1 hero and was the symbol of peace. But it wasn't just the quirk that really caused All Might to remain that high up. It was also the fact that the man, he was just so much, he had so much charisma, it fueled him that he never really gave up, even when technically he should have been done in a long time ago. Not normal people can really push themselves as far as All Might did. So, regardless of quirk of how good it is, it really comes down to how you use it, but also the individual in question. And so Kendo, even though she says this about Momo, that Momo is obviously superior in a lot of ways, it doesn't mean that Momo is automatically going to win. Yes, Kendo can make her hands very large and stuff, but that does not mean that she's automatically going to lose against Momo. Because let's take a page from One Piece for a second. Luffy, a man made of rubber. You would think a rubber power would be absolutely stupid. Let's be real here. When you started One Piece, if you ever have started One Piece, when you first saw Luffy, you have to admit, a rubber ability for the main character just seems, it's unique, but you're like, what? What? Like, of all things, you give him, like, a rubber ability? It just seems really far out there and just really not that cool at all. But as you progress with the series, you're like, whoa, there's a lot of things that, Luffy can do with rubber. And so you can assume that Kendo, it might be just like that. Maybe she only has this very limited ability, but it might have a lot of things she can do with it that could really make her powerful. So I am looking forward to Kendo versus Momo, seeing who really comes out on top. And if I had to take an educated guess, I'm going to assume that Class B is going to win this fight. Now, the reason why I'm assuming that is because if we're going along with what happened in the previous round, Class A won. And obviously, we cannot have Class A just have a clean sweep, wipe everyone out like it's nothing. Class B also needs to win. Now, let's just be real here. Class B does need to win to balance the scales, because even though many are fans of Class A, it would not be right for Class B to constantly get shafted. It would be very bad from a story writing perspective, so I don't think Horikoshi's going to do that. So we can assume that Class B is probably going to win this, which in turn would progress a lot of our characters. For instance, it would set up a rivalry between Momo and Kendo, but also Shi Hai and Tokoyami, and potentially other characters that might get a little bit more rivalries going on throughout the series. Who really knows? But the point is that I do believe Class B will come out on top, especially after really looking at Kendo's stats, to Shi Hai, to just others a part of Class B's team. That's just what it seems like to me. So, stopping there, let's talk about Tokoyami for a second. Now, Tokoyami, I'm a big fan of him, and I think everybody knows that. I even talked about this at the beginning of this video. Shi Hai as a character, honestly, he went over my head. I want to be honest. I never really thought too much about Shi Hai at all, but after seeing him in this chapter, he has this right edginess about him, where I'm like, it's not over the top to where it gets annoying. Like, when you're watching a series, and it's an edgy series, and you can feel the edge. You're like, oh my god, like, it's just so uncomfortable or bad, it's just not done right, it's like, just forced or shoved into your face. You probably have seen a series like this either in anime form or manga form, and I'm glad Shi Hai doesn't seem to kind of be like that. It's kind of like how Tokoyami is. Tokoyami, even though he's an edgy boy, he's like that goth kid, he doesn't shove it in your face. Horikoshi doesn't shove it in your face as well. It's just timed right, and it just really fits with his character, the theme, and all of that, and that's why I've always really liked Tokoyami. And Shi Hai as well seems to be a perfectly established character now, because, like, he's not shoving in your face that he's, like, a chuny, but at the same time, it fits so well with his character. I'm like, you know what? I want more of this. I want to see more of it. I want to see more of these edgelords talking and going at each other. And what this chapter effectively did was set up a rivalry between, Tokoyami and Shi Hai. And I do see in the future, maybe, that those two might team up and work together, maybe as two heroes, like, what we see nowadays going on in the pro-hero scene, is that many heroes now are working together to take on villains, because villains now are becoming more organized, they're working together, so obviously heroes need to do the exact same thing. It shouldn't just be a solo job anymore. Many heroes need to form teams, and I feel like maybe Tokoyami and Shi Hai are going to be something like that, because when you think about, what Shi Hai could really do for Tokoyami and Dark Shadow, it's actually kind of pretty scary. Think about it like this, okay? If Tokoyami and Shi Hai were to work together, and he could technically enter into Dark Shadow, which we saw in this chapter, that would be very powerful, because that would mean that, Tokoyami, he could send in Dark Shadow at an extreme distance to kind of drop in Shi Hai somewhere close behind enemy lines, because, look, Tokoyami extended his range very far, and if he could do something like that and, transfer Shi Hai somewhere into, like, some form of dark room or whatever, that would be really, really freaking powerful. That's not even getting into the fact of how Shi Hai could really just benefit from Tokoyami's attacks or moves or anything, and how Tokoyami could benefit from him as well. That's also not talking about the fact that Tokoyami got out of control because of Dark Dark Shadow when it reaches Dark Knight, you know, Shi Hai could actually control Dark Shadow and manipulate his movements. Let me explain. Remember what was stated in this chapter? Shi Hai, he can move any dark object as long as it is movable. And he did move Dark Shadow in this chapter. So, for instance, let's say Dark Shadow went out of control like he did in, you know, the villain raid when they attacked in the forest at the training camp. Shi Hai could go into Dark Shadow, control him while he's in Berserker state, and effectively use all the power that Dark Shadow has. Now, I don't know if it'll be relatively easy to control someone like Dark Shadow, but if Shi Hai really does have that ability to manipulate any dark object, then that would be very strong to use. So, you make a pitch black room, get Dark Shadow and Tokoyami in there, Shi Hai could have a field day with that. It would be scary. Now, let's talk about the actual rivalry going on. You know, these two going up against each other. Tokoyami, he's in a very bad state right now, because it's not just the fact that he uses Dark Shadow, which is just pretty much pure darkness like a stand. It's the fact that what Tokoyami wears is dark. It's black cloth. And because of that, you know, Shi Hai could technically probably get into his clothes and negate all damage, because that hasn't really been clarified at all. It was stated that he could enter into any black object, so that would mean that if there's like black clothing, a shadow, you know, a solid black pipe, whatever, he can get into that and be safe. We don't really know if he takes damage or not, if like the object he's in takes damage. That has yet to be clarified at all. So for all we know, if he's about to take a lot of damage, he could just get inside of like the clothing, let's say Tokoyami, and he can't be hurt at all, and Tokoyami can't really do anything about it. So that is a very big wild card right now with Shi Hai's ability. We don't really know exactly the weaknesses, if he has a duration. We really don't know. We just know the fact that is he can actually move objects that are movable. So if it's like a solid pipe that he's in, he can't actually move that. Which does bring up a very important question when it comes to shadows. See, shadows are considered darkness, yes. But it was stated that he can only move things that are actually movable. And technically, shadows can be moved. However, they're also stationary, and I'm kind of curious on that, like that little detail. Can he actually move shadows, or because shadows only move when the main object moves, does that mean he can't move the shadow? That's also something I'm very curious about when it comes to Shi Hai and his ability. So yeah, like I said, Tokoyami and Shi Hai is going to be very enjoyable. It's going to be very exciting just to see who's going to come out on top, and I really think Tokoyami is going to have a really hard time with this dude, because honestly, looking at it, everything on paper, I just don't really think Tokoyami really can win. Even though I'm a fan of him, it seems like everything is kind of stacked against him. The only thing that could really help out Tokoyami in this case would be Aoyama, and how he has like a light-based quirk. Remember, Aoyama, he can use the light, shine the light on anything, so anything that's like, you know, covered in darkness, he can light up, which in turn would really hurt Shi Hai's ability. And Shi Hai right now is technically by himself. If you really think about the situation right now, if Shi Hai gets cornered in any way, he can't really do much, because he can be easily captured. He's by himself, nobody's there. So yeah, so it's a good situation for Class A, but it really depends on how they utilize the quirks that they all have at their disposal to take the man out. Let's talk about everybody's failures and what they need to work on from the last round. So Koda, he realizes what he needs to work on. He says he needs to be able to give quicker and better orders to the insects that he commands, which is something he definitely needs to do, and it also shows how much he's grown as a character. Remember, he used to be scared of bugs. He didn't want to mess with them at all, but now he's able to actually have them around him, interact with them. So it shows Koda is developing slowly, and that once he continuously uses, you know, the commands he can issue to insects, he's definitely going to be a powerful individual, because honestly, you should never underestimate bugs in any way, because they can be very freaking strong. I mean, look at ants and what they can pick up just by themselves. So imagine if he's able to command a giant army of, like, you know, fire ants or something. That's pretty freaking scary. Then we also talk about, you know, the situation with Kirishima. Kirishima admits his flaw, and I didn't really think about it until it was mentioned in this chapter. He does have a very fatal flaw. As we remember, in the past, Kirishima had a really gigantic battle that happened in the last arc with Overhaul. He was going up against Rampa, or however you pronounce his name, forgive me, it's been a bit, but he was going up against the man, and he was all bronze, brute fighter. He just wanted to have a straight-up brawl with Kirishima or anyone that fought him like Fat Gum, and because of the way that fight was done, Kirishima had, like, everything to his advantage, because his quirk is very effective in close-range battles. However, in the fight he had against Class B, with what happened with Beast Boy just slowing him out of the way, it removed anything that could make Kirishima very valuable in a team fight. And that was something very important there, is that, you know, Kirishima, he's not going to always have a situation where enemies are going to want to fight him straight up. You're going to have many opponents that are going to be ranged fighters, stay in the back, and they're not going to want to deal with him at all. I mean, if he's as hard as, like, you know, the hardest substance in the world, he's unbreakable, literally, then obviously people are not going to want to deal with him at all. They're just going to sling him away and then deal with everyone else that's behind him. So that's probably what he needs to work on. He needs to work on how he can bait someone into a close-range fight before he can actually deal with them. Because right now, he's just a close-range fighter. He can't really do anything at a distance. That's a really big weakness he has, and he needs to overcome that, which is what Izuku kind of had until he finally got some range attacks, which, you know, he can, you know, finger flick, and, you know, we saw what he did against Shinto. So yeah, Kirishima has some things to work on. Now, Kaminari, I praised him a lot. I praised him that he definitely has grown as a character. He was able to stand out, shine, and, you know, take down a lot of Class B. However, there was something that was stated about, you know, Kaminari that is very important, is that he was only able to be very effective once his teammates were down and already captured, which, once again, we gotta remember that this is kind of like a real situation. Like, imagine this was a real life or death situation where they were going up against villains. Soon as someone's captured, you might as well say they're dead. So, Kaminari taking that long to really be useful and, you know, use his quirk was actually bad, because if he really took that long, 2 of his team members were just dead, and there's no way he could come back from that. So if this wasn't a training exercise, Kaminari just costed a lot of people, and he just, you know, killed 2 of his friends, basically. So yeah, he has stuff to work on as well. He needs to be able to be, you know, quick thinking, think on his own without other people telling him, but also he needs to be able to use his quirk before others actually start to get captured. Now, Tsuyu, I like how she's very aware of her flaws, what was wrong in the match with, you know, Class A versus Class B. She feels really bad that 2 of her members were captured, and this goes along with what I was talking about in my last chapter review, that Tsuyu, she's really showing qualifications for a leader. She's definitely going to take the role of a team leader probably in the future, leading a, you know, a team or a group, because she really was quick thinking, and it was stated that she, instead of, like, focusing on the failures that happened, she needs to move forward and realize how she can actually be a little bit more quick-witted and, you know, be able to adapt to any situation that happens. So she needs a lot to work on when it comes to the leadership role, which, once again, I'm really happy with, because I love Tsuyu actually taking the leadership role. She was really impressive in the last, you know, chapter. So, let's also talk about, you know, Class B situation. So, we got a little bit of a rundown with them, that their biggest fault was that they didn't decide on a leader. It was always Beast Boy or Shiozaki that was, you know, the main centerpiece of their team. We didn't really know whoever was the leader at any given time. And when you do think about that, is the truth. We didn't really know who was leading the team. We didn't know if it was Shiozaki, if it was Beast Boy. We didn't even know if it was Rin. I mean, when you really look at the situation, I would have actually said Rin would have been a better team leader than any of them there, because he definitely was able to kind of analyze situations around him and figure out good things that they need to do. But once again, because of how he wasn't the team lead. I do think out of all of them, Rin should have been the team lead, but Shiozaki and Beast Boy were the main focus, and they need to, you know, figure out how they can actually lead or not. Now, speaking of which, Shiozaki, did you legit say that to Beast Boy? Did you literally just tell the man to just go burn? That's messed up. That's pretty dark. That's really dark. Like, oh my god, like, holy crap, Horikoshi, I did not think you would have Shiozaki say something quite like that. So Shinzo, he also mentions that, you know, he should have been a lot better. He's really upset with, you know, his ability to use his quirk or use the binding cloth. And Aizawa kind of cheers him up. He's like, look, man, you know, it took me 6 years to be able to use the binding cloth. So it's not something that's going to happen today, or even let alone 1 year of training. It's going to take a while for you to get to my level to be able to even use a binding cloth. So I do like how, once again, Aizawa is really building up, you know, Shinzo, allowing him to understand that it's a long road ahead of him to eventually be a really good hero. Now, speaking of heroes, we have a All Might and Midnight scene. And that scene, when she was literally just getting, like, all happy and giddy on the fact that it's the springtime of youth, and they're all green, and they're trying to, you know, impress the teachers, and also show that they are very strong and improved a lot. I like how she's just getting all happy, and All Might's like, you got some problems or issues. That had me dying. Like, yeah, that's great. But yeah, chapter overall was very enjoyable. Cannot wait to see the next chapter. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.